Hello and welcome to episode 133 of the 10 Million in 10 Years podcast. I'm David, your host. I've got Emily with me here today. Welcome back, Emily.
Hi.
This is a big episode, so I've brought in Emily, the co-host. We're going to do a 2-year recap, summary, highlight reel, consolidation of what's been learnt in the 2 years since starting the challenge. So big episode, this one. Before we get into it though, I do want to say a big thank you to Tom Hardy for supporting this episode. Tom is a local legend, and I would recommend getting in touch if you're buying or selling real estate in the Canterbury area. So, 2 years, almost 2 years in. So, August 25th is when the challenge started, 2022. And reflecting recently on what I've learned over that first 2 year period, really shocked me. The first year was almost a setup phase. It was getting my bearings, figuring out what was potentially going to lead toward getting the 10 million. Year 2 has really been transformative. I didn't realize it until I had that few days off when I was sick, and looking back at where I was at that point last year, mind-blowing, totally different. It's absolutely staggering. It's like the saying goes, we often overestimate what we can do in a short amount of time, but underestimate over a longer period of time.
Absolutely.
And just like seeing what has happened in that last year especially is crazy.
No, I honestly, the value on looking back and seeing where you were this time last year is such a valuable tool, because then you can appreciate all the good work that you've done in such a short amount of time. Because I think for anybody that is hardworking and has ambition and drive, you want things to be moving faster, because time, as we get older, we realize that we don't want to muck about. We don't have time to sit back and enjoy and smell the roses. It's that time is so precious. We want to do it all ASAP right now. We don't want to waste a moment. What moments we feel that is slowing down is actually time to breathe and utilize that moment to stop and reflect. It shouldn't be always go, 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 go. And I love when you do take that time to appreciate and really give yourself a big pat on the back on everything that you're doing thus far, which is huge.
Yeah, one thing that really jumped out to me was the events. So having recently created the breakfast and lunch events, with, there's energy, there's momentum, there's people, there's like enthusiasm. It's really awesome to see. I'm absolutely stoked. Two things. One is funny. One is that I've often dreaded events and just been fearful of them, but having lent into them and I guess stretching that muscle of curiosity into what it could look like, and having some success with it, that's been really cool. The larger event in October will be a really interesting experiment as well, so looking forward to seeing what will happen with
Absolutely.
that. But where I was going with that story was, even just over a year ago, there was no events happening. Like, there was no coaching going on. There was more confusion than anything. But I think if people ask me how the challenge is going, I feel like I've found a relatively clear path to get there, to the $10 million net wealth goal I've set myself. So yes, it's around focus. It's around specializing in growing the consulting brand. Coaching will still be a part of that, but it's growing a business, essentially going all in on that, not being distracted with spreading myself too thin, not being tempted to try and create multiple channels of revenue. It's about just going all in on one thing. I think it's something that's probably not overly surprising to most people. I think we all probably know this deep down, but it's felt good to come to that conclusion on my own. But I'm looking forward to what the recap will look like in year 3. I feel like there's going to be some significant progress made. One thing I wanted to talk about was the whole making a leap, like the idea of leaping and making those jumps that are uncomfortable at the time. They feel financially uncomfortable, or uncomfortable for whatever reason. You know, if I look back to I think it was the June lunch event, and I had 35 people show up, and before then it had been maybe 20, 21, 22, and that felt like a jump, you know, that felt like a leap to increase both the volume of people and to have like, you know, multiple tables at Elements and microphones, and it's like, holy shit, these people are all here to like hang out, meet other people,
absolutely,
network, enjoy each other's company. And I was like, far out, it's like a really big contrast to go from no events to that.
It is. There's so much to, you know, with my experience on doing anything like that in not your world, but in what I was doing prior to this point, it is a lot of work and a lot of anxiety around how is this going to, you know, who's going to turn up on the day. Even though you have to sign up in Humanitix, it's still that unknown. Like every time that you do it, you just don't know who's going to turn up, what the energy is going to be like. People are going to have a good time, because you want everybody to have a good time, but you can't enforce people to enjoy each other's company. You know, you could have two competitors sitting side by side, you know, and then how is that going to work? Are they going to punch each other, or are they just going to harmoniously sit and chat and
be best friends?
You know, it's just, there's so much that's out of your control, but you want the best.
Totally.
And so, and a lot of the times it's like, it's not down to you to do that. It's down to everybody to bring the good vibes. And the fact that you're able to attract like-minded people, I think that's the hardest but crucial.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you've aced, and I think that's amazing.
Yeah, I think one reason for that, and one reason I've lent into these events, is a takeaway that I got from the Stephen Bartlett event that we went to in Auckland, and he was talking about bringing in other people, like working with other people, doing more with people essentially, and whether that's employees or joint ventures or contractors or suppliers or customers or, you know, even just people in your world, like people that come to events. Like that was one thing that I took from the event and then directly applied it. And I believe, and I could be wrong, but I believe that this could pay off down the road. I think that bringing together like-minded people that are all interested in similar things will have a really positive effect down the road.
I think so. I think it really, really will, because, you know, you could be in a situation where you are a business owner, you're doing really well, but your friends aren't, and they can't relate to the trials and tribulations that you have every day. And then being able to go into, you know, a room where everyone gets it, they know the struggles, but then they also know the triumphs, and they just say, yeah, that's amazing. And you feel uplifted by the environment that you're in. I think the key thing that you mentioned is people. So you haven't specified men, just men only. Like, you're quite open for it to be it's been
men only up until July. So as of recent, as of today, actually, the 5th of July, this will go live. This is when it gets a bit confusing.
It is, because you haven't...
Are we in the future? Are we in the past? I'm not sure.
No, we're doing back-to-back podcasting, so we don't really know what's going on. We don't know.
I hope that doesn't ruin the magic for anyone, by the way, hearing that it's back-to-back-to-back.
No, I think it's all important topic.
It's all transparency.
Yeah,
I believe in transparency.
Top of mind conversations that, you know, again, value, you know, thoughts and processes might change a little bit, but not significantly in a couple of weeks' time. Yeah.
I like the idea of being transparent and being open. You know, like, I've often had that as my secret sauce, so to speak. I've always lent into the discomfort of being slightly vulnerable, but mostly honest. Mostly honest. I say mostly honest because there are some things that, of course, would be inappropriate to document publicly. But, you know, one of the things that we're talking about today was the events and how historically over the last, say, 9-10 months, they have been for males only. But I don't really see a reason to keep it that way. I think that involving males, females, whoever.
I think that it should be anybody that is wanting to, has the mindset of leveling up and working hard and, being surrounded by like-minded people, whether it's men or women, is really important.
Yeah.
I guess when I've sort of looked at it, I thought, as women, we have such amazing channels to communicate. We're very good at chatting to our girlfriends and talking about a whole bunch of stuff. And, I don't feel that I'm missing out, in terms of those sort of things. Whereas sometimes I just think having a space for men to talk about business in a way that they don't feel they're upsetting anybody is really important too. And so I looked at your men's groups as, the lunch is not necessarily this is men only, women aren't allowed. I just see it as a safe space for like-minded people to openly communicate, but also it's business. It's not talking about mental health. It's not talking about, really vulnerable, deep stuff where maybe people might only want to talk to certain people about those sort of things. You're not in that space. You're in business. And so I don't see why it needs to be segregated, I guess.
I don't think so. I mean, historically, just for reference, that has been one of the reasons why it was males only to begin with. It was to create a space that males could feel like they could share some of the more personal details of the struggle. Like business is a struggle at times. And, I think at that point, when it was a smaller group environment, that did make sense to have males only. Mm-hmm. But I think now, for what it's evolving into as a larger group format, I think it makes sense to bring in females. I think that would be a really healthy thing. I think it would be good. And again, I'm keen to try it.
You're definitely open to, either or in terms of options. But I guess where you're coming from, it wasn't specifically to isolate women from this topic. No,
there's no need to cancel me for being, male only here. I found that when we were doing the 100 episode sauna special, that was a similar kind of a problem though, is that because we got, I think it was 5 or 6, 7 males, and then it was like, well, it'd be cool to have some females here as well. Then it got too difficult.
It is because
it was unbalanced.
It is. If you've got 1 female and 10 guys in a sauna, that it's got different connotations, it just doesn't seem, because you're all sweating half naked, there's something a bit freaky deaky about that to me. But if it was 50-50, could be a different thing. But I don't know, it is a tricky subject to have.
Well, I think the thing that comes to mind is balance. We talk about balance in a lot of areas, right? Like life balance, lifestyle balance, fitness balance. I find that if anything's unbalanced, then it's generally not a good thing, is it?
Yes.
Like if your wheel on your car is out of balance, then it's messing with it, right? Mm-hmm. So I don't know. Just thinking out loud here.
Yeah.
But let's open it up.
Mm-hmm.
See what happens. Yeah. The breakfasts are not male specific. Mm-hmm. It just so happens that because most of my coaching clients are males at this point, that they've been typically booked by males, but we'll see. Yeah. In terms of other challenge aspects, the podcast has continued to fuel my drive. It's been a form of public accountability. It's led to some great conversations, new contacts. Mm-hmm. It's just been a good tool to have at my sleeve.
Absolutely.
So we'll continue going with that.
Mm-hmm.
I was looking at some Joe Rogan highlights recently, and I think he was up to maybe over 1,000. He's done a few.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot of reps. I noticed a few of those larger ones are getting up there on episode count. So whether there's some form of refresh, some kind of rejigging on it, I'm not sure. I'd like to constantly continue to improve. So whether that's through increased audio quality, camera quality, editing, asking better questions, more research, I'm not sure. I think just putting my own spin on it, That's what's important to me, though.
I agree. Mm-hmm.
Definitely excited to find more interesting guests. That's like something that I love doing.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll continue on the podcast. But back to the leaping thing, like just thinking about like the selling of the property over on the coast, like that's quite an uncomfortable thing to do for some reasons, but I know that it'll fuel the growth of the challenge. I know that it's a step in the right direction. Well, I don't know, it's an educated guess, but I just want to like really bring that point home of doing things that are uncomfortable, and that's generally where the growth happens. Like that's where you transition from one state to the other. That's like something I'm so passionate about. And whether you need to gamify it or to do abstract things that are hard, like the cold showers or 75 hard, or whatever it is, I just don't think it really matters, because I think it sets you up so that when you do need to make a hard leap from a business perspective, it's just a lot more natural and a lot easier. And whether that's hiring someone, firing someone, taking on debt, taking on investors, whatever it may be, I just find that doing those harder things puts you in a position where you're just more capable.
Absolutely. That's where the confidence comes, I think, is knowing that you can do those things and do it well. And if something like that pops up again, you don't feel so anxious about it or worried that it will go badly. Those events, if you said to yourself this time last year, you'll have 35 people to 40 people turn up to a public cafe, and, that's amazing. Like, would you think that you would be able to achieve that?
No, I mean, I just wouldn't have predicted it. I wouldn't have even considered it to be an option. That's the hilarious thing.
Yeah.
I think back to, I think it was May of 2023, and I was going to an event, similar, run by another coach. And, at that point, at that moment, there's just no way I would have even predicted getting into coaching myself and then, subsequently running these events. So it's absolutely crazy what can happen in a year.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the big call to action, I think, is to always have that year plan ahead of you, roughly, like just maybe not plan, but goals, specifically goals.
Yeah. The one thing that popped into my mind, and I always sort of trust if an idea comes into my head that I should say something about it. I think when you've found your calling or found something that you're passionate about, that you go head in and just accelerate and exceed. And then you think, oh my God, I've only been doing it for 4 months. But you expect to have achieved years and years and years worth in 4 months, and but then if you think back to this time 6 months ago and you didn't even know what you wanted to do or where you wanted your life to look like, it's amazing. You've hit. I feel like you're in the right space where things just flow easier. You're still doing the hard work, but things are just happening without you forcing it. It's just organically, though nobody will turn up to an event if it feels forced. Nobody will turn up to an event if they feel like they're being plugged down their throat. You should come. It's organic. It feels natural and it feels like a fun, good idea to do. Totally. And so that's why people will turn up.
Yeah.
Nobody turns up if it feels
contrived.
Yeah, exactly. And boring or just a waste of time. Nobody will give up their 1 hour of their lunch break or their business time, where client could be in that time, but no, they choose to come to this event. And so you're doing good things when all of those avenues are doing well, I guess. But I think the thing that I want people to know is that when they're hearing your story, there's times where it's tough and there's times where you question whether this is a good idea. And what would you say to people that are in that moment? Because everybody has it. It doesn't matter how rich you are or how successful you are. There's going to be periods where you wonder, is this worth carrying on? What would you say to people in that position where they're questioning everything?
Yeah, I think this is where it's important to have people in your corner, people that you can trust to talk to. I think having been through a different phase, in a previous business where it came to the end of the road and I decided to wrap it up, like that was a really valuable experience through being a client of a business coach. Like that was something that I was able to work through at the time, and it never feels good to wrap something up like that. It never feels good to close down and to sort of admit failure on one hand, but I think sometimes it is the best move. But I guess as a practical takeaway, like find people that you trust, that you respect, especially for that particular area. So if it's a business related thing, then find like the biggest, baddest business operator that and talk to them, or a trusted advisor, consultant, coach, someone that you respect and would actually listen to their advice. I think it's really ironic when people ask for advice but don't actually pay attention to the response, or they don't fully respect or trust the person that they're asking. So,
which is crazy.
It is crazy, but it it happens more times than it should. It's a tough one though. Like I don't know if there's a rock solid answer for that. I think that every situation is so unique and so many different variables. But I've had clients that have been in a place of like not loving it, but then through looking at their situation with a different lens, we've been able to work through a different way of
that's so cool
moving forward, and now they're jazzed up again. So that's cool. That's incredible. So sometimes you just need a fresh set of eyes on a problem.
Do you think that sometimes, speaking a bit woo-woo, but the universe will give you something to reel you back in, like you have a fantastic podcast guest and it zhuzhes your enthusiasm for doing podcasting again, or you have an amazing experience with a business owner and you think, that's why I want to keep doing it. Do you think there's those elements as well?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I definitely believe in that. I think that it's the time that's the unknown, right? It's like you hear of all these success stories of people that have just persevered for like months, years on end, and then they finally get the breakthrough, and it's like, Jesus, I don't know if I'm that dedicated, but I don't know. Every situation's just so different, right? It's really hard to give blanket advice.
Probably the essence is, if you enjoy the process in essence, you will handle all the bad times.
Yeah, that's probably a really practical thing to say and to really send home, is just find something that you don't mind the process.
Exactly.
Yeah, that you don't mind chipping away at. I think it's pretty obvious, but if it's the outcome that you're looking for, if it's the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, I don't think many people find that pot of gold, do they? No, and I think the more rainbows you start chasing, probably the more tired and burnt out you're going to get.
Absolutely. So. I wonder if it's like this in business, because with dance, my years of coaching and being an instructor and etc., I see so many people come and go in dance, and some that are just friggin' talented. But sometimes I find the talented ones are not willing to put in the hard yards to get to becoming fucking brilliant. Whereas it's the ones that they're not quite at that level, but they've got promise and they have a great attitude. And they're the ones that, become their own studio owners. They're doing their own thing. That's what I've noticed more. It's not even about how good you are at the certain topic. It's about your desire to want to do the hard work. Yeah, totally. I mean, it's, I don't know how to say this in a polite way, but it almost seems like the less capable people that almost do the better, right? Because they don't overthink it. They just do it. They just do. They don't think, right? Process,
yeah. Like this one guy that I went to high school comes to mind. Like, it's grown this massive business, and it's through doing. It's not through. It's just it's interesting.
It is.
Yeah.
I think there's so many things that work and don't, and overthinking things can absolutely kill the vibe.
That's right.
And by just actually doing something about it is just the best way. Like even in a very, very small scale, you know, I'm looking at a particular social media account and it hasn't been touched for maybe 6 months. And, you know, there were so many steps and procedures around how they can approach the social media aspect. I was like, just start, just make a simple post. It's just overthinking it. That's where it just, there's no reach anyway. Nobody looks at things that are highly curated, but then sometimes you don't know what you want until you see it on the grid, and then you realize, no, I don't want it to look like that. Let's move into another direction. And I think just don't be afraid of making a mistake. Don't be afraid of doing something not quite right. Just do it and learn as you go.
Totally. Yeah, just take action. What else have I got here? I've got notes. I've come prepared to this episode.
I love this,
Emily. Yeah. Taking leaps, so that was a big thing that I just wanted to emphasize yet again. Take the leap. Yeah, like whether it's leaving the job, leaving the relationship, doing something dangerous. That is a really cool word. I like the danger word. You know, like don't play it safe.
It is. Like there's just so much that I want to say around taking the leap, because I know in my life, you know, I've got close friends that do that. You know, they've taken the leap, and there's so much judgment for doing that. Doing something that people thought, oh, you're in a happy job or in a happy relationship or in a thing. Like, why would you just chuck that all away? Like as if you're some selfish person who has no heart. And, you know, you don't know their life. You don't know what it's like to be in that situation, to, you know, say have like an absolutely high paying job and leaving that to be a nomad and just living off the grid. You don't know what it's like. Yeah, they were good at their job, but were they happy?
Exactly, yeah.
And at the end of the day, this podcast is, yes, 10 million, 10 years, being productive, going towards set goal. But some people, they just want to live a goal that is just totally different. And it's about having, you know, freedom and doing things their way.
Yeah.
And I think that's amazing. And I don't think it should be about judging just because it's not what you think is the right path. And you have to live vicariously through your life and what makes you happy. And it's hard because people have opinions.
Yeah. Yeah. And once again, you know, the people that you hang out with, right?
Exactly.
Critical importance of that. Spending time with a group of people that are supportive, positive, doing stuff.
Definitely.
You know, so important. One huge concept that I came up with a while ago, and I believe it's a way to manage time. Like I often talk about the 16 hours, and this is something that has really stuck with me, which is this concept of breaking the day into quarters. So breaking it into 2-hour blocks. So the work day, say it's 8 hours, 2-hour chunks times 4. And then outside of those hours, another 4 2-hour chunks, 16 hours total. And so myself, like getting my head around that, if I wake up at 5 a.m., then I've got roughly 1.5 chunks until work starts, or 3, or whatever the case is, right? But, you know, I just look at like blocking time, and this is something that I'll probably go into a little bit more in a future episode, but that is all we've got. You know, it's how we spend our time is all we've got. Whether it's making hard choices, messing around, being productive, taking bold moves, exercise, whatever it is, like that is all we've got at the end of the day. We've got just got those time, that chunk of time. And so that's just a different way I've looked at breaking down my day in order to just be a bit more, productivity gets a bad word sometimes. It gets a bad rap because it just disregards enjoyment or fun or spontaneity. But I feel that if you can master your time, then that's the key. So more on that later. But so before we go, what I wanted to mention, so year 1 was like finding myself, finding the routine, leaving a job at the time, shout out to Andrew Farrow for antagonizing me enough to leave that one. That was that was something that was a leap, you know?
It was a massive leap.
Yeah. It wasn't something that I hadn't done before, so it wasn't as scary as certain leaps, but it was still a leap. And it was a really good realization of how comfortable it can become.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, that's the whole point, making leaps. Year 2 was around refining the plan, evolving, finding a mechanism to get me on this journey. I think year 3 through to year 8 will be executing on this plan. The plan will develop, of course, over time, but I feel like I'm in a good position now that I can really start making some serious traction, taking some more leaps and making headway.
Absolutely.
So at the end of this calendar year, end of 2024, I'll have a financial update, which is something that I've always wanted to do throughout the challenge, just to make it a bit more real, a little bit less abstract.
Scary, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it kind of is. I did one at the end of the last calendar year. So, yeah, it's all part of it. It's all part of documenting it. I feel that I could probably do a better job of it, and maybe in future years there'll be some more resourcing to devote to that. I think that would be really cool.
Wow.
But for now, I'll just keep it with the podcast primarily. That's the main method of telling the story. Using LinkedIn a bit more. Using Instagram to a smaller extent, but the podcast will continue to be a primary medium to talk about the challenge.
I love it.
And there's a book coming at some point.
Well, I think it's a no-brainer, right?
It started, so that's the key. But yeah, I think the real topic and theme of this is just taking leaps, getting uncomfortable, you know, swinging from one vine to the other, or whatever you want to.
Absolutely. And I would say, you know, that whole cliche of trusting the process.
Yep.
Because there have been times where, you know, you expected to go this direction, but it actually took you there. And then it's not until you look back and thought, I was never meant to go in that direction at all. But that hard pivot can be quite disorientating and just like, oh, but if I go here, I would get to my destination faster. This way means I have to start all over again. And that I don't have time for that, because I've got to do this in 10 years. So, you know, I've only got 8 more years to go, and that can be the stress. And it's, you've sort of taken that mindset and gone with, no, I'm trusting the process. I'm meant to go in this direction. Yes, it's going to slow me down, because there's been so many moments where it slowed down the process. It hasn't sped it up. And you've just battled through it, I guess. Like, you've trust the process. You're doing the hard grinding. I just really want to make that clear for everybody to know that it's not like, okay, 3 to 4 years, it's just going to go like that, and it's just going to work all in my favor, and it's just going to rain money, and I'm just going to turn up, and it's going to be amazing. It's just, if only it was that easy.
No, that's right.
It's lots of, you know, moving parts and things going this way, things going that way. It's not a nice, beautiful straight line. No, that's a good caveat to add in there. Yeah. There's definitely ups and downs, and I feel that probably I gloss over the negative, because I don't want to gravitate toward the negative. No, but I think being realistic as well. Yeah. But, you know, you do have a great positive attitude, and you want to encourage everybody to start and do the thing. But I guess I come into it not negative, but realistic, that you've got to be prepared for when things do go south. Yeah. And be okay with it, because it's a part of the process. You're not a failure if it goes bad. It's just an opportunity for you to stretch that muscle of resilience. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I think, there's a number of ways and mechanisms, of course, to get to this particular goal, but a big tenet for me has always been to do it in a way that's, you know, personally enjoyable, is doing something that I love, and not just grinding away in a cubicle. Absolutely. You know, selling something that I don't believe in. So it's really important to note that as well. It's a reminder, I think. There's definitely easier ways, like maybe simpler ways that you could get there, but
for me, it's about doing it in a way that's in line with my values and life interests. So there we have it. 2-year update.
Wow, we did it.
We did it, Emily.
No, you did it. I just came along for the ride.
No, you did an amazing job. Before we wrap up the episode, I want to say a big thank you to our second brand partner, to Andrew at Ewell Forest Motor Company. Before we get into the episode, I just want to say a big thanks to my mate Andrew here at Ewell Forest Motor Company for supporting the episode and the podcast.
We specialise in high-performance British, American and European cars. As a listener and a supporter of David Mouse's podcast, I would invite any listeners to get in touch, have a look at our website, www.efmc.co.nz. Come and see what we've got out here and we'll take care of you.
efmc.co.nz. He has a range of exotic,
Beautiful,
interesting, intriguing vehicles.
Mm-hmm.
I've been lucky enough to drive a variety of them. There's everything from Ferraris, Lamborghinis, Aston Martins, Jaguars, all kinds of interesting stock. Range Rovers, yeah.
Porsches.
Yep. Teslas.
Yes.
Yeah, he's got it all. So very good guy to deal with. That's probably the big thing, I think, is when you're buying a car, it's nice to deal with someone that's easy to work with
Absolutely.
and trustworthy. So get in touch with Andrew if you're in the market for a cool car. All right. Thanks, Emily. We'll see you back in the next episode.